Hello and welcome into the Knicks-Verse. My name is George, and if this is your first time here or you've been here before but have not subscribed yet, please do so, along with hitting that thumbs up button for me and dropping your comments. Comments certainly help me. Especially, I want to hear your thoughts and feelings about this video. I'm putting it out because there's been some reports, some updates on the injuries, the Knicks injuries of Julius Randle, OG Anunoby, and Mitchell Robinson. Nothing earth-shattering in terms of the injuries, but in terms of the tone and the attitude. And it was sparked mostly by Josh Hart's interview, post-game interview last night. I don't think he intended it to. He just answered a question honestly. But it definitely gives us some thoughts about what this team is going to be going into the playoffs. Who will be available? Will the three even return? Will some of them return, others not? If they return, will they be compromised? So we're going to look at also what that means in terms of the team that actually exists right now and how deep and far can they go into the playoffs. I have an Ian Begley comments. I have Shams talking about it, and I have Josh Hart himself, which we'll go to first.
The Thunder team over there, and you guys one shot away from winning that game without three of your key players. Are you able to look at it like that at all, or is it?
Nah. I mean, I'm looking at it like this is a team that we're gonna have. I think that's how we have to approach it. That those guys aren't coming back, and then obviously we'll be pleasantly surprised if they come back. So I'm not in those medical conversations or anything like that, but we got to approach it every game and the end of the season that those guys aren't coming back, and if they do, be pleasantly surprised.
That's it.
Be pleasantly surprised if they do come back. Now, as a player, he should look at things that way, because if you're sitting there thinking, oh well, they're going to come back, then you're not as focused on at the team, the players you actually are on the court with at the moment. So it's fine for him to have that attitude, but it's interesting to say it out loud, especially with only 8 games left in the season. Steve Popper wrote an article today in Newsday, which you should all check out. He says, has injury reality finally set in for the Knicks? 8 games left, no clear answers, and the trade that was supposed to help has not. Interesting. Also, when you think back here, let's look a little further into this article here. He says, while the questions arise every game, wondering when Julius Randle will return, why OG Anunoby has been sidelined for the last 7 games after briefly returning from what the team said was a simple and successful surgical procedure, and what about Mitchell Robinson, who lasted 2 games before re-injuring his surgically repaired left ankle. They seem ready to move forward without counting on any of them. Interesting. Oh, also, we'll talk about this later. So, one thing, let's go to the Shams comments right now.
No Julius Randle, no OG Anunoby yet. What can you tell us about that? I'm nervous.
Yeah, these are serious losses for the Knicks. I mean, obviously, OG Anunoby, he's been out since March 16th, inflamed elbow. The hope is that the inflammation goes down. At some point, he's going to be able to come back. The hope has been that it's going to be when, more of like which day exactly, which game exactly. When is he going to wake up feeling better than if? But with Julius Randle, it's a little bit more precarious. I mean, this is someone that's been out since January 27th. We're already into April, and he still has not done anything more than controlled contact with that dislocated shoulder. And Josh Hart, his comments I thought last night were very telling. He said we have to operate as if neither of those two is going to be back in the lineup. So for the Knicks, it's really a wait-and-see approach. It seems OG Anunoby is more likely than Julius Randle at this point, but we'll see. And Mitchell Robinson also missed the game last night with the ankle injury as well.
The Knicks, no Julius.
So, according to Shams, it seems, at least, for OG, it's not a matter of if he'll return, it's a matter of when. And when that elbow will just feel better. He'll just wake up and, the pain will be gone, or will be at least, the swelling will be down enough so that he can actually start practicing. He hasn't even practiced at all. Well, that's somewhat good news. If is not the issue, it's when for OG, but it does seem like if is an issue for Julius Randle, who's only been doing controlled contact, which means it's shoulder pads, or he knows when the impact is coming on the shoulder and he can prepare himself. But that's not real game situation. And as I mentioned before, a couple of weeks ago, after I did some further research on a dislocated shoulder and the recovery time for even an athlete, it's 12 to 16 weeks. So 12 weeks would be April 28th, which would be sometime in the playoffs when he would return. So he wouldn't return if he did the full 12 weeks. Let's put it that way. Now, there is also the week in between the end of the season and when the playoffs begin. So maybe during that period, Randle starts practicing with the team, scrimmaging with the team, taking impact. Maybe he'll be ready, but it's a maybe. It's a maybe. With Mitchell Robinson, it's a whole other issue there. Is it possible? One thing I did do when I did some research on Randle, I did research on Mitch's operation as well and his ankle surgery. And, technically that one he could have come back even 3 to 4 weeks earlier than he did. And I thought, it was hopeful. It's a good sign. Okay, they're holding him out even longer, waiting for him to get that conditioning right. And also, so that he can escape a further injury. Well, that didn't work. And then with OG, you have this procedure. I've had a similar one. Actually, mine was even more invasive. And then he comes back, and then after 3 games, flares it up. Actually, it's really after just 2 games because it was, through the 3rd game. He didn't look right in that 3rd game at all offensively. His shots were short from the very beginning. So it's not like he started that game feeling good. And then aggravated it during the game. It had already been bothering him, and I'm saying that term by judging the way he was shooting the basketball. Now his defense, of course, was there. So possibly, it's hard to know what happened. Did the procedure not go well? Did they overlook something? Did he rush back? I doubt that he rushed back, considering that he's not someone who likes to play through pain. So there's a lot of uncertainty here, and it's making I was feeling concerned about the whole situation to begin with. I was being hopeful, and I was going by whatever the Knicks were telling us, especially with the Randle situation. It was kind of piecemeal. They said originally in 2 to 3 weeks he'll be reevaluated, and then in another 2 to 3 weeks, we'll look at how he's progressing. But they never told us up front. It's really a 12-week recovery window at least. So I am concerned, and it is possible that we may not have any of them. It's possible we may not have any of them for the playoffs or for the remainder of the season. But Ian seemed a little more optimistic when he was interviewed last night after the game, and this is what he said when he was asked, what are the chances we don't see OG Anunoby until the playoffs?
I still think at some point, these guys will be back. We talk about Anunoby and Julius Randle. It is a bit bizarre that Randle has not been cleared for contact yet, and Anunoby, Tom Thibodeau said before the game that he hadn't taken any contact in practice yet. So that's another hurdle for Anunoby to deal with. But big picture sense, even if you get both of these guys back, what kind of shape are they going to be in the postseason? How susceptible are they going to be to re-injury? For Randle, it's the shoulder. For Anunoby, it's the elbow. So clearly they'll be compromised. But I do think you will see both of them back at some point before the end of the regular season. And the Knicks should have a week between the regular season and the start of the postseason. So surely that week off will help these guys as well.
All right, so like I said, he's more optimistic. He thinks we will see OG and Randle back. Didn't mention Mitch. He wasn't really asked about Mitch, but he feels there's a question of will they be compromised. For sure, Randle will be compromised. We know he will be because he didn't have a surgery, and the risk of re-injury is high. And if he does re-injure it, it could be chronic moving forward. That's one of the dangers of doing what he's doing. But he wants to be part of this. Right now, the Knicks are in 4th seed. If they had been able to pull off that game last night, they would be in 3rd right now, a half game in front of the Cavs instead of a half game back. So, this is the situation with the Knicks right now. Let's go to this situation here. Let's look at right here. So let's look at these are the next 8 games. Here's the standings right now. So the Knicks are in fourth with a 44-30 record. Last night I incorrectly misstated the record if they had won. So the Knicks would have been 45-29, which would be a half game in front of the Cavs. Now they're still right there. They're within shouting distance of the Cavs. The Cavs have been struggling of late. The Magic are on the Knicks' tail right there, only one game back, and the Pacers are 2.5 games back. I don't see, with 8 games left and with Jalen Brunson on this team and the way the team does play, I mean, they took, like the guy interviewing Josh Hart said, look, you took a really good OKC team into the very last possible shot. So this is a solid team as currently constructed right now. But of course, that's not what we want. We've seen the potential. We saw the Jan Knicks, the 14-2 January Knicks. We know that when a team is healthy, at least when they have OG and Randle playing, this team can kick some serious butt and be a serious threat to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And with all three, Mitch as well, I believe that the Knicks have a legitimate chance, a legitimate chance of taking the Celtics to a Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals, or whenever they face them. Let's say it's even in the second round, if all three are healthy. So ifs everywhere. Ifs. Those are the issues right now. Let's move on to this. These are the next 8 games. They play the Miami Heat next, April 2nd, tomorrow. And then that's in Miami. And then they travel back home to play against the Kings. And they play the Bulls 3 times in the last 8 games, which is really interesting. They go to play in Chicago against the Bulls. And then they take a little trip up to Milwaukee. It's not a long trip. They play up to Milwaukee April 7th. And that is when this watch party will take place in Los Angeles at the Greyhound, Glendale. You guys should definitely come. If you live in LA, if you're a Knicks fan, or in Southern California, come up. The game starts at 4. I'll be there earlier. We can chop it up. It'll be a fun time. It's going to be a really good time. It's a great food, great cocktails. It's a great vibe there. So that'll be that game, the 4th game there. And then they come back down to Chicago, and they play the Bulls a week from tomorrow, April 9th, for the 2nd matchup against them. And then they travel to Boston. Big game right there against the Celtics. It'll be interesting what kind of team the Celtics want to put out on the court with only 3 games remaining. Will they want to show the Knicks anything? Maybe they sit some guys. Hard to say, but the Knicks, it'll be an important game for the Knicks because we're the ones who are battling for seeding. And then we come home and we play the Nets, who we pretty much took care of last time, and then we have the final game of the season, which will be the 3rd game in 8 games against, actually the 3rd game in 6 games against the Chicago Bulls, but this time it's at home on April 14th. The question is, will OG be back for any of these games? It's even hard to say. There's just so much uncertainty. But let's be positive here. Let's say OG, in the next week gets one more week of rest, and then he's ready for that April 7th game this Sunday, the game, my watch party game. Let's say he's ready for that. So ready for that, then we have the Bulls, Celtics, Nets, and Bulls again. Let's say the Knicks could go 4-1. Let's even say let's get greedy. Let's say we can go 4-1. Let's say we can take care of business against the Bucks, take care of business against the Bulls. Maybe we steal that game against the Celtics because they rest guys. Maybe we don't. Maybe they play their full team and we lose. So it's hard to say, but the Nets, I think it's definitely a win, and the Bulls at home for us is definitely a win. So the question is, maybe we split one of those 2 games that are away at the Bulls, and then in the last 8 games, we go 5, maybe we go 6-2. That's what I had originally predicted a long time ago, but that was with OG and Randle being available. And Mitch, let's hope that Mitch's ankle, we have no information on it. Let's say they say he re-injured it, but we don't know to what degree. Maybe the swelling will go down and he'll have his mobility back, and maybe he'll be ready to go for the Friday, April 5th game. Maybe he gets another 2 games off. But thing is, because the way the Knicks are, in the way the front office is in terms of injuries, there's hardly any transparency. We've actually heard, to recap it, with OG, it was constantly piecemeal. It was like, oh, it's just an irritation. And then we found out, oh, he already had surgery yesterday. That was on the February 8th, the trade deadline day. So we don't know. And then with Mitch, it was hard to even tell. I didn't even remember the injury originally, the original ankle injury back in December. And suddenly, he was gone. And then he got an injury. He got surgery. So we have no idea. But so that's why Josh Hart's attitude is resonating, because of so much uncertainty. But when you hear guys like Ian, who follows this team every day, and his feeling is that we will see OG and Randle back. So, but it's a matter of whether they come back just for the playoffs. So let's say, play devil's advocate here, the Knicks decide to just roll the dice with the team they have and give OG as much rest as possible, because he's a plug-and-play player. He doesn't need games to get back into conditioning and to figure out how to contribute to winning on this team. No, he can do it immediately. That's just the type of guy he is. And if his elbow, if they want to just rest it so that we have him for the playoffs, he sits the remainder of these 8 games out. That's a possibility. Mitch is a different story. Mitch definitely needs the conditioning. He needs to be out there playing so that he can really contribute when it comes to playoff time. He definitely looked out of condition, but he definitely had an impact on the games that he did play. The first game, definitely. In the second game, he was hobbled. He landed awkwardly. It wasn't anything major. He didn't land on anyone's foot. He just kind of landed awkwardly. And maybe that's just a slight sprain or whatever. And hopefully he can get out and at least play at least 4 of the remaining 8 games. That would be nice for his conditioning itself. Now, again, he's going to be coming off the bench. He'll probably be averaging 18 to 20 minutes. So it's not like we need him to start. So in that respect, but let's say they give him all the time off. Wow. So that means when he starts the first round of the playoffs, he won't be in his top shape. All right, and then with Randle, honestly, I don't see the value in bringing him back earlier unless he is totally able and confident to take contact on that shoulder. Let's say they scrimmage. So here, the problem is there's not even any time, because the Thursday, Friday games are back-to-backs. And then they, I guess they have Saturday off before they go up to Milwaukee. There's really not much time at all to have Randle practice with the team and take contact. So, and to feel comfortable. But let's say they create, a controlled environment, a controlled game environment, but still has uncontrolled contact on his shoulder. So he has some games, maybe he plays with the second unit or the bench guys, and he takes some good contact on there, and he feels good, and maybe he can return for the last 4 games as well. Now, that would be coming back at the 10-week mark. Well, yes, that'd be coming back. Let's say he comes back for the first game at home, returning after that road trip, which would be the Nets. So he would have 2 games under his belt before the playoffs. That's not a bad idea. So he's going to be playing at home. He plays against the Nets, and then he plays the Bulls. He gets a little more comfortable. At least he gets a little bit more in the game conditioning, and he trusts the shoulder. He trusts taking impact on that shoulder. So maybe that's an interesting idea. Randle returns for those 2 games. So that's a possibility. Let's look at the playoff picture here. So right now the Knicks are in 4th, so they would face the Magic. The Magic own the season series on us, but we were able to take care of the business against them the last game. We played them finally because we were 0-3 against them. I do believe that the Magic, as good as they have been, as good as their defense is, I do believe that even the current Knicks right now, as constructed, could win that series, even without any of the returning injured players. Let me repeat that. I believe that the Knicks can still beat the Magic in a series, even without OG, Randle, or Mitch. That's what I believe. Now, Does it improve our chances if we have OG back? Of course. So I'm counting on OG returning for that. But in this case, I think it's possible to get out of the first round, even with the team as currently constructed, as Josh Hart has said. So in this scenario, though, we would face the Celtics in the second round. Now, at this point, it would be hard to say. It would be a big stretch to say the Knicks could take care of the Celtics with the team that's constructed currently. So at that point, they just have to play as good as they can. And who knows? Maybe the Celtics go cold. You never know what can happen. Maybe some mistakes happen. You never know. So this is the situation right now. But let's say, best case scenario, as I outlined before, OG does return. His elbow inflammation goes down. It was just a thing that happens. And then Randle returns for those last two games. He gets some game minutes under his belt, and he's ready to go for that game one. So, and then they ease him in though. He doesn't have to be immediately in and start playing 38 minutes. They ease him in, and we take care of business against the Magic. He gets into conditioning there. He starts trusting the shoulder a little more, getting the impact, and then he's ready to go for that Celtics game. And let's also be positive, and Mitch Robinson comes back. So the team comes back, and we're ready to face the Celtics. But who knows? If OG and Randle do come back during the regular season, maybe the Knicks can recapture that third seed, and they would be playing the Pacers down in the bracket below, which would mean they would face the winner of the Bucks or the 7th seed in the second round. That's the situation right there. All right. Now, let's look at the team itself and what it's been doing in the past 14 games. This is the past 14 games. And this is March. This is all of March, basically, is what it is. The Knicks won 9 games in March. Now, this is only with OG playing 3 of those games and Mitch 2 of those games. So they went 9-5, tied for 7th best in the league, in the NBA itself. That's something that's good. That's good quality, considering without OG and Randle and Mitch, basically. Then, when you look at the offensive rating, that's the thing that's a little bit concerning. They scored 115.7 points per 100 possessions during those 14 games, which is good enough for 14th best in the NBA. That's tough. You want to be in the top 10 in both categories to be considered a team who could go deep into the playoffs. Well, in this case right now, the offense did struggle. But when you look at the defense, it was the number 2 rated defense in the last 14 games. Now, that's only 3 OG games. Only 3 OG games. Interesting. A 105.9. And then, when you go even further and you look at the net rating, the Knicks have the second best net rating in the last 14, in the month of March. 9.8. That's nice. Now, you're thinking, okay, but that still has OG type numbers in there. Well, let's look at the last 7 games. These are the games since that OG has missed, since he re-aggravated his elbow injury. Offensive rating. The Knicks jumped up to second best, 123.1 per 100 possessions. Only the Boston Celtics are better than them. And then when you look at the defensive rating, drops down to 16th, 113.1. So we needed that offense because the defense wasn't where it was before. Then the net rating, still a 10.0, which is better than the 14 game average, but during the 7-game stretch, the Magic, Celtics, and Mavericks have had a better net rating, but only 3 teams in the entire NBA have had a better net rating. So even this severely depleted New York Knicks team that, somehow came back from 20, allowed the Spurs to get a 21-point lead, but were able to come back on that and did lose it on a heartbreaker. And then they lost again the next game on a heartbreaker situation, a Shai Gilgeous turnaround baseline jumper that he buried to win the game for OKC. OKC is number 1 in the West right now. So this is a high-quality team. So the point is this. Whatever ends up happening, we're going to have a good team going into the playoffs. It's just a matter of how many bullets are they going to have? How many players are they going to have available? Quality players are they going to have available to put out there? Because the bench has been letting this team down. So if we get OG back and we get Randle back. See, the minute you get OG back, it pushes someone else out of the rotation into the not out of the rotation, sorry, out of the starting unit into the second unit because the bench needs desperate help. So in this situation, I'm going to be very hopeful that the Knicks will get some luck and they will get at least OG back, and he'll be back and he won't have to look. We worrying about that elbow. He'll just keep moving forward, and he'll give us that incredible OG effect where everyone kind of finds their right place and they can reach their best selves. And then we get Randle back, and he works himself into game shape because we're really going to need him for the Celtics. Definitely going to need him for the Celtics. And if that's in the second round, then so be it. Come back in time for that. That will have been past the 12 weeks. If we end up getting past the first round and we face the Celtics in the second round, that will be past the 12-week recovery marker, which is good. Then comes Mitch. Mitch is the real uncertainty. Don't know how he re-injured it. It could be a tweak. We don't know. It may not even be related to the surgery itself, even though it's the same ankle. So that one, it's hard to even guess at all. But for that one as well, I would love, personally, to have him back for any matchups against the Celtics. Now, let's say none of those three come back. None of those three come back. Then that means that we battle the Magic just as the team that it is. I like my chances. I like our chances. I like our chances right there. All right, man. This these injuries are so, they're frustrating as a fan, especially because we know how incredible this team could be if everyone was healthy, if no one had gotten hurt. We know that this team could be a legitimate title contender, not just an Eastern Conference final contender, like a legitimate title contender. This team fully healthy could legitimately challenge the Boston Celtics in the East and could definitely take care of the Bucks, Sixers, Heat, Cavs, anybody else, Magic, anybody else you throw at them, then that team could take care of them. There's more uncertainty since there is uncertainty, that we don't know if they're going to be available. So in that case, we just got to hope for the best. Hope for the best. All right, thank you so much for watching this. Again, my name is George. Please subscribe, hit that thumbs up button for me, and drop your comments if I want to hear your thoughts and feelings about this. I hope I was able to capture the situation that the Knicks are in at the moment. Has injury reality finally set in for the Knicks? I believe it has, but the problem is we don't even know what that reality is. We don't. The reality that they may be without all three is a possibility, but it's not a reality. We don't know. So much uncertainty. Oh, man. I will see you around. Before I sign off. Sorry. Knicks watch party, April 7th, next Sunday. Hope you guys can make it. Let me know. Send me a message or a comment or whatever. Let me know. Be nice to know who's showing up and stuff. And I'd love to meet you guys in person after all this time. All right. I will see you around the Knicks-Verse, hopefully next Sunday.